Well, I can tell you that we're excited. We just came off a tough couple of battles in last Tuesday. You know, we were in two states that, frankly, were not states that we even thought we would try to even compete in. So we saw an opportunity in Michigan to go up there and run against Governor Romney in his home state, take him on, go in the belly of the beast, and to try to get our message out there, a positive message. As Sharon was talking to you about, a message of someone who has stood up in his entire political career when it was not popular to be a conservative, when it was not popular to be fighting the battle of the values that make this country the greatest country in the history of the world. We stood tall, and we took on in tough districts in a tough state of Pennsylvania. Maybe not as tough as Washington, but a tough state. But a tough state for a conservative in Pennsylvania. We defeated Democratic incumbent after Democratic incumbent. Something that isn't a bad thing to have to do when you're looking at this election. We've already beaten two Democratic incumbents for the House and one for the Senate. There's only one federal office left. How about that? So we were able to with that same idea that we could go out, we could go there, we could compete. We could go into that state and we could work hard and we could communicate a message. And guess what? From the day that we won Missouri and Minnesota and Colorado, from that day forward, there's about 100,000 votes already cast and filed by that date. Since that date, we won the majority of votes in Michigan, and we won big on election day. And as a result of that, we came out of Michigan with half the delegates in the state of Michigan. Now, I will say that today, the Romney people in Michigan, the Governor Romney, and all of the establishment, just like you have in every other state, all the establishment, all the inside players, all the old boy network. And the old boy network went to work in Michigan. And they decided to call a meeting. They were all embarrassed. They couldn't deliver the home state. They couldn't deliver a majority of the delegates in his home state. So they went back and they rewrote the rules, changed the rules, and decided they were going to give an extra delegate, take one away from me and give it to him. I don't know about you, but, you know, I didn't expect that in, you know, a banana republic. But you don't expect that in the United States of America. And you don't expect it from a group of conservatives. And see, conservatives, we learn to play by the rules. We respect the rule of law. We take our victories and our defeats, and we just keep coming at it. But maybe, since Governor Romney sort of knew to being a conservative, he didn't understand that. This is what we're up against. We're up against the old boy network. I've been up against them before. I was up against them in every race I ran. I was up against them in every battle I fought in Washington, D.C. We were out there fighting the establishment. We were able to fight the establishment, not just to raise, you know, what. But we went out there and we fought on prison. When I came to the House of Representatives, I was part of a group called the Gang of Seven. We exposed the check bouncing scandal. We exposed corruption in the House and the House Post Office. Our investigation, our work, standing up to Republicans and Democrats to show what was right, what was just in dealing with with the banks and the post office, and how members of Congress were quoting loans, tax-free loans from the House Bank and taking stamps that they got from the post office and trading it for cash and then pocketing the money. That was going on for years in Washington, D.C. until we came here. We cleaned it up. And Republicans and Democrats lost their seats to resolve it, including, if you recall, the Speaker of the House, Tom Foley, here in the state of Washington. We stood up to the old boys on both sides. I've done it in my political career. I'm used to fighting City Hall. I'm used to fighting for the values I believe in. We stood up for conservatism. That's what we're going to need in this election. Someone who understands what it means to run as an underdog. Running against this president's not going to be easy. we're not going to have the most money. I don't care who the candidate is. We're going to have more money on the other side. They would have to run a primary. He's an incumbent president. He's going to have the national media protecting him at every turn, just like they do now, protect him at every turn. So we're going to have someone who has grit, who's a fighter, who has determination, who can take the dollars you have and make the most of that money. Why? Because you have a vision for America that excites people. It gives people a rally around you. That's why this race isn't over. This race, for all intents and purposes, is giving them huge money advantage. All the media attention. Every time Governor Romney wins a race, oh, it's over. You hear it now? Oh, it's over. Oh, no, it's over. They're trying to tell you, stay home. It's why. Don't let the establishment go ahead and pick their nominee again, like they did 4 years ago. So you have an opportunity here in Washington State to join me, to fight those folks, to say we want a conservative nominee for the Republican Party in the fall. Look at the races in the last 30 years. We nominated a moderate, McCain, Gold, Jerry Ford. When George Bush ran for re-election back in 1992 after raising taxes and increasing spending, they all ran as moderates. We all lost. Every time we've run as a conservative, we've won. Why? Because Americans want a choice. If there's a difference between somebody Tweedledum and Tweedledee, you know what? This country is going to probably stick with the person that the person they know. We need to have a sharp contrast. Someone who paints a very different vision for America. Not someone that went along when everyone was buying into man-made global warming. So everybody rushed. Oh, we need to do something. Sat on couches with people. Fast. I only sit on couches when it comes to another look with my wife. Really not able to grow. I didn't know about being the first governor of the country to put a cap on CO2. When Governor Romney did that, the power plants in Massachusetts. No, I stood up and I said, you know what, this isn't climate science. This is political science. This is using politics to try to get control of your life using the environment. Again, just like that happens out here all the time. You see it, where they use phony science to make their case to take more control and power away from you. Right? Well, I didn't buy into that. We stood tall and fought cap and trade. Same thing with the bailouts. Oh, well, the country's in trouble. Government has to come in and take over a sector of the economy. I said, no, that's not the right thing to do. I came from an area that went through economic devastation. I come from southwestern Pennsylvania. I grew up in a steel town. I represented the district when I was in Congress. It was the old Steel Valley of Pittsburgh. And everyone said, at the time, well, maybe the government come in and bail out a lot of, these big steel companies, giants of industry. We did. It was tough. But you go back to Pittsburgh now and you see a very different city, a city that's thriving, doing well, diversified their economy. Steel industry there is smaller, it's different. But you know what? Americans are resilient. Free markets work. Private enterprise works. But the other two people who are in this race who want to stay, they jumped on board with the inside crowd. They jumped on board because this is what they were told their Wall Street friends needed. We stood tall and said no. We need someone who's willing to stand on principle. Someone who's willing to go out and fight the fight for the values that made this country great. And what are those values?
There's a difference between somebody Tweedledum and Tweedledee. You know what? This country is going to probably stick with the person that the person they know. We need to have a sharp contrast. Someone who paints a very different vision for America. Not someone that went along when everyone was buying into man-made global warming. So everybody rushed. Oh, we need to do something. Sat on couches with people. Passed. I only sit on couches when it comes to another woman with my wife. That's it. Certainly not Nancy Pelosi. I didn't crow about being the first governor in the country to put a cap on CO2. When Governor Romney did that to power plants in Massachusetts. No, I stood up and I said, you know what this is? This isn't climate science. This is political science. This is using politics to try to get control of your life, using the environment. Again, just like that happens out here all the time. You see it, where they use phony science to make their case to take more control and power away from you. Right?
All about control.
Well, I didn't buy into that. We stood tall and fought cap and trade. Same thing with the bailouts. Oh, well, the country's in trouble. Government has to come in and take over a sector of the economy. I said, no, that's not the right thing to do. I came from an area that went through economic devastation. I come from southwestern Pennsylvania. I grew up in a steel town. I represented a district when I was in Congress. It was the old Steel Valley of Pittsburgh. And everyone said, you know, at the time, well, maybe the government come in and bail out a lot of, you know, these big steel companies, these giants of industry. And we didn't. It was tough. But you go back to Pittsburgh now and you see a very different city, a city that's thriving, doing well, diversifying their economy. The steel industry is smaller, it's different. But you know what? Americans are resilient. Free markets work. Private enterprise works. But the other two people who are in this race who want to stay, they jumped on board with the inside crowd. They jumped on board because this was what they were told their Wall Street friends needed. We stood tall and said no. We need someone who's willing to stand on principle. Someone who's willing to go out and fight the fight for the values that made this country great. And what are those values? Did you ever hear them talk about values? Oh, they just, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to create this job, and I'm going to create that job. As if government creates jobs. What government does is set forth a playing field. And here's the decision we're going to have to make in this country. We're going to have a playing field where we're going to have two teams on the field. We're going to have a playing field where a third team is on the field, and they're going to play for one side or the other. The government is going to basically decide winners and losers. They're going to pick the people. They're going to be successful in America. They're going to take resources from this group and give it over here. They're going to create rights. Be careful when government comes around and says, oh, we're going to give you the right to, and fill in the blank.
Right.
Where do rights come from, folks? That's right. This is what makes America different than every other country in the history of the world. And you see, there are people in Washington, D.C. who don't get that. You see America fundamentally different than our founders. Barack Obama gave a speech about 9 months ago in response to Paul Ryan's budget. And he said this. He listed all of these entitlement programs. All of these programs where government takes money and then redistributes to other people.